All right, so before I start here, I have to give a very big shout out to one Dave Fleegel and the Broadway Theater, who was incredibly kind enough to let me see a showing of this by myself. And I'm glad that he did because I had a near out of body experience watching this film. Dave, you're amazing. Broadway Theater has always been very good to me. They're an incredible establishment, and I thank them very much for all that they do for me, and continue to do for the area that I live in. Dave, you're awesome. Mike, go ahead.
Okay. So this is the official synopsis for Spider-Man No Way Home. This is the third film in the Spider-Man Homecoming trilogy, directed by John Watts and written by Chris McKenna and Eric Summers. Picking up right where Far From Home left off, with Spider-Man's identity now revealed, our friendly neighborhood web-slinger is unmasked and no longer able to separate his normal life as Peter Parker from the high stakes of being a superhero. When Peter asks for help from Doctor Strange, the stakes become even more dangerous, forcing him to discover what it truly means to be Spider-Man. I know it says so on the bottom of the screen, but I want to emphasize once more that this is fully a spoiler review.
I would have had the picture of all three of them on top of the Statue of Liberty if I freaking could in the background here, so y'all better know if you're watching this. There's no way to review this movie otherwise. I would have just went, hey, I liked it, and we ended the video.
Basically, yeah.
We couldn't do anything otherwise.
So taking things from the top, Brock, you've seen this movie, what, 3 times now?
If I didn't have to come home and shovel up my driveway, it would have been 4.
So I've only seen it twice, but I have literally not stopped thinking about it since then.
It's hard not to. I had to explain this. That line that Andrew gives to Toby about, are you just going to go into battle as a really cool youth pastor? I saw this with my old youth pastor twice. So I was grinning like a little schoolgirl just waiting for him to hear that line. But as I was going to say, I was explaining to my old youth pastor before he wanted to go see this, that this stuff goes so smoothly in this movie. It was almost like they purposely planned to have 2 incompleted Spider-Man trilogies to have as background story for this movie.
It is pretty perfect.
None of it seems forced. Like, it's like, this went wrong and this happened. All this other stuff would happen.
Yep.
But, yeah, they don't, like, there's only 2 things, and we'll get into them, that don't get mentioned in here at all. I wish they would have mentioned, but I'm okay that they didn't. But yeah, the only time we get any slowdown whatsoever is in like the first hour of this movie.
And even then, that's still like kind of the important setup.
Because you don't need it for the rest of it. And one thing this movie does incredibly well, not a lot of other, especially MCU movies do, is show the price that the people who aren't superheroes that are friends with these people have to deal with. Because the MCU doesn't believe in secret identities outside of Peter's until this movie, or I should say Far From Home.
Yeah, that's what makes the MCU Spider-Man movies kind of different compared to the rest of the MCU. Like, I don't think in Endgame we really get to see civilian life except for Hawkeye's family.
the thing with Cap, and then Tony's daughter, and with Pepper. That's about it.
But like, most of the action is like in pretty like secluded locations.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
This is one of those movies where like the civilians are about as important to the story as the heroes.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And they become incredibly important at the end of it because man, we'll get it to when we get to it. But if you could have told me that you were going to pull a version of one of the worst Spider-Man storylines ever and make me like it, I would have slapped you in the face. If they would have told me the story they were going to adapt at the end of this, I would have told them to not make the movie.
And yet, somehow they made it work.
Because they did it in the not stupid way for a not stupid reason like Marvel did back in the day, which we'll get to. Y'all people won't believe us, but they did it for the reason we're going to bring up because they hate happiness. That's not a joke. But
it is frustrating, and for many people that was like their exit point for reading Spider-Man.
Mm-hmm. But anyway, so the beginning startup of this, as we should get into, is that life goes in the shitter for everybody because of this. Figure out that I guess Aunt May and Happy were dating. Okay.
It was a fling in Far From Home.
Yeah, and I was just like, sure, whatever. Then you get to realize that just being associated with someone who is possibly a murderer, literally ruined Ned and MJ's life.
MIT basically said, nah, we're good.
Yeah, we're good. And everyone instantly hates or doesn't hate him. It was very much showing how easily divided people can get. And man, J.K. Simmons, I think, was like a kid in a candy store for the fact that he got to be J. Jonah Jameson again.
I'm almost convinced that this is like his favorite role to play.
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it.
And that when asked to return, like the first thing he said was yes before even hearing the question.
Yeah, he's just like, for how long? What are we doing? Because it gets to a point of where you didn't even see him in the Amazing Spider-Man films, but like just the few texts that Andrew's Peter got from him, I've read that in JK's voice.
Same.
Like, you can't not at this point. It's ridiculous. But the whole beginning of the movie is just basically showing being Spider-Man and attempting to not be Spider-Man ruined Peter's life and those around him. There's a lot of extra scenes and bits and pieces that involve that, including them, again, not being accepted into any schools, more specifically MIT. So that leads us to where we start getting into the nitty-gritty of everything, which is when he goes to Sanctum Sanctorum to go see Strange. And that scene is played 1,000% different than what it is in the trailers.
Oh yeah, the trailers make it out to be something completely different, which I understand why, because it's a pretty big spoiler. Also, can we talk about the fact that Wong just kind of casually drops that he's the Sorcerer Supreme
on the dumbest technicality possible?
Mm-hmm.
Because Strange got blipped. Really? We're just gonna act like that was an actual thing? But it's like, and of all the reasons that Snow's in there, I heard some people come up with some stupid shit. It's like, yeah, we just didn't put a maintenance spell and something from Siberia blew in a storm. That was that extra added thing just so you could have that scene.
Probably.
That's such like call it flavor text, but just like scene adding. As they'd have two people in sync shoveling in the freaking Sanctum Sanctorum.
And I love how Peter's like, oh, what's this for? A holiday party?
Yeah, like no, not at all. And then so he I like how Peter, man, they've gone out of their way to show that Peter is not just some dumb kid in this film, and I really appreciate that. Like, Strange calls him out right away. He goes, we did some unbelievably not okay things as far as the space-time continuum to bring everyone back in Endgame, and all of a sudden now you chose a superhero life and it gets tough and you want to do whatever. He's like, I don't care about me. It's ruining everyone I know's lives. And then you see Strange immediately go, even if I wanted to, man, I can't. And it's just like, oh, he's genuinely wanting to do this for other people. It's like, oh yeah.
This is the Peter Parker that's in the comics. This is the one that will do anything to save, his friends and loved ones.
He puts himself last every single time without even thinking about it. And so they go to do this. They go to do this spell. And they bring up, we shot an episode of The Equalizer here in the 80s. But they have this forgetting spell that, like, Strange was ready to just forget who Peter was immediately, like, without hesitation. It was like, wow, okay. If I was Strange, I would have been, all right, everyone but me is going to forget who you were. So there would be some tangible link to say, if you need to help the Avengers again, I know. If that was me, that's how I would have handled it.
Same.
It was just like, Strange, what the hell? But yeah, so you get the very classic, oh wait, whatever, screw up with the spell where Peter can't make him concentrate, and then he contains it, which not how I thought that was going to be handled, but again,
I feel like if he didn't do that though, things would be a whole lot worse.
Oh, absolutely. I just didn't think they were going to have a contained spell that they had to keep track of. I just thought it was broken and eventually they'd have to fix it. But it's very simple and it gets busted up. And I love how I could tell, like, I wouldn't have thought how they portray Peter is very accurate, because I was on the same page as Pete when all of a sudden Steven goes, and it's just like, you didn't try talking to them. It's whatever. He's like, by talking to them, do you mean I could have called them? It's like, yeah, you could have gotten a hold and plead your case. You didn't do that?
I've been in situations like that where it's like, you think no means no, but then
yeah,
there are always exceptions to the rule.
Exactly. You're just like, oh well, they said no, and then Steven's like, you moron. That felt really real. I was just like, yeah, that is how that situation actually would happen. Peter would immediately went, I have friends who could do this. Why would I just call the dean? This is a very extra special situation. And so then we start getting into the madness of the multiverse here before we get to the next movie that has that, which, oh boy, we're going to talk about that later.
Yeah.
And we get to where he has the fight with Doc on the bridge with trying to talk with the dean. Or not the dean, I can't remember exactly what her job title was.
I think it might have been like the vice like the Weisstein or something.
It was something with admissions, I believe. But I didn't know exactly how that fight was going to go. But I'm not going to lie. The one thing they did in this movie was there was a lot of shutting up of haters in this movie, and I really greatly appreciated that. Where it was just like, this Peter can't do a damn thing on his own and can't figure out anything and can't think. When Doc steals the nanotech from him, and he just stops, and I'm like, that's so smart. That's the easiest way to contain Doc ever.
Yep.
You see him being so happy that he's just got this unlocked, and he's just like, what?
He's like, oh yeah, wait a minute, nanotech, I control that.
I got this. He's like, till we get this situation handled, I got you. How about we just calm down? Oh gosh, so good. Peter being able to boss people around is something that I've not seen ever. Like, him being in control of his villains, like outsmarting people, is awesome.
There's another great moment that comes later, but we'll get to that.
Mm-hmm. Even the girl from MIT, A tells him, you're a hero. He's like, no, I didn't want to do this. I didn't do this for me. He's like, I'm talking to them for all of you, not just you. Then she goes and she bitches out octopus that she's sleeping. I so badly wanted her to smack him with her purse. Oh, it would have been great. But I was kind of expecting to have a little bit of a showdown with a goblin on the bridge.
I'm kind of glad they didn't, because because he gets the best fight later.
Oh yeah, they save him on purpose, absolutely. And you get to go back immediately into the Undercroft, where he just has the lizard already. That was the one where they're kind of like, yeah, we ain't got much to do with the lizard in this movie.
He's basically just there to fill a quota.
He is. He's there to go, Andrew's going to have some lines with him later, so we got to have him in there. And you start to see, they start talking about how all this stuff, you got to fix it, all that. And it is a really cool idea, just how, and Strange isn't like, Strange has got other stuff to do, obviously, but like he goes out of his way to make this as easy as humanly possible for Peter to fix this problem.
Yeah, he gives him like a magic gauntlet that pretty much zaps people into the prison.
Yeah, it's like, and it doesn't even have to be multiple shots. It's just like, you hit them once, they're here. Go get it done. He's like, even you can figure that out. And yeah, so they got Connors and they got Ock right away. And you have to get back, and he had to get his whole crew together. They come back, they get all that. I like how they have to censor Scooby-Doo crap into shit, from shit into crap. Like, they actually showing that Steven's really legitimately pissed about this, because I was like, he's seeming very mild-mannered in these trailers for how angry he should actually be. And they get all that together. I like how much they're teasing. Because one thing I always thought about these branch of movies is that they don't have to do the Green Goblin, because they have Ned. They could do the Hobgoblin.
Except they're never going to, because Ned is Ned.
Nah, I wouldn't say that. There's 4 to 5 different times in this movie where they mention, hey, so I'm not going to turn evil and become a thing that's going to do Hepida. And also they went out of their way to go 5 different times to mention, hey, my family's got these weird weapons and all of a sudden I know magic. Go, everyone watching this video, go read up on the Hobgoblin a little bit. Just going to throw that one out there.
Oh God, I don't think I'm ready for evil Jacob Batalon.
Jacob Batalon is went through a transformation recently. I think he wants to do some more stuff other than being the kooky, funny guy in the chair. Just saying. And now, considering what Ned is compared to Peter at the end of this film?
Actually, you know what? Maybe there is something there.
They kind of went out of their way to go, we're going to do some different stuff. Because, again, Osborn mentions it later, Oscorp doesn't even exist in Peter's world, so you can't have the traditional Green Goblin. And you know what? You don't need it.
Plus, I don't think anyone is going to top Willem Dafoe.
You're not. They tried to rush it in Spacey Spider-Man 2, and Dane DeHaan could have been okay. But Amy Pascal got her britches in a bundle and just had to have everything right away. Oh, I get a small migraine every time I see that Pascal picture sing at the end of this film. Oh, but anyway, so the first two we get to meet, and I'm super happy about how they handled this, because I saw the end of this film and I was like, they're making everybody villains just to be villains, and that irritates me. They didn't. You get to see completely blue Electro. So they aren't like acting like these films didn't exist. And I greatly appreciated that. And you get to have Sandman helping him. Like immediately he's like, Peter, what the hell's going on? We were friends 10 minutes ago. Who is this dude? Wait, you're not my Peter? What? Flint in this entire movie is like, I don't care.
He just has one goal, and that's to get home.
And I'm super okay with that, because at the end, he's not trying to hurt Peter. He just wants the damn box. That's all it is, which is fine, because I was like, Flint wasn't evil. And that's like in the trailer. I'm like, don't make him evil, because he's not. You went out of your way to show that.
Yeah, exactly. Spider-Man 3 ended with Flint and Peter on good terms.
Absolutely. And you got to get some good stuff with that later. And it's really cool how this movie should not have worked as well as it did. They do so much in this damn movie. It should not have worked. But yeah, you get to have the cool moment of Sandman defending Spider-Man at first. You get to see the weird everyone. There was an argument on Reddit about how everyone was stupid for suggesting that the suit he wore that was gold was just his old suit inside out. Because the track patterns and everything don't match. The spider emblem's different. I'm like, yeah, that was also the one from the first movie and not this one.
I'll admit, for a split second, I thought that was his suit just turned inside out. But no, it's different. It's a what is this, like a stealth suit that he's wearing?
No, it is the suit inside out.
Oh,
it is. It is. Everyone thought it was something different because they're like, that'd be super stupid for him to just put his suit inside out. No, it is, because you can actually see the electroid conduits and stuff that like power his suit like on his shoulders.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it absolutely is. That's I thought was funny, and like you can actually see it because they uploaded him in the Amazing Spider into the Spider-Man PS4 game. So I went and looked at all of it. Yeah, it's just bare wiring and like hookups just out in the open. It's 100% an inside-out suit. It's great. I wish it was something else because I love black and gold patterning, but yeah, you get like Jamie, who he's just the first one to go, okay, this is different. Why are we like this? And another thing they go out of their way to show really well is that like Electro may be a lame villain in some comics, but if you do him right, Electro could be a big problem.
As much as I have problems with the Amazing Spider-Man 2, I think the idea of turning Electro into a, an actual worthy adversary, like I understand like what they were trying to do, even if it didn't completely work.
Yeah, they hammed it a bit too much. I very much like the idea of a guy who's a loner that like really looked up to Spider-Man and then went kind of nuts when Spider-Man didn't show the appreciation back. But like, oh boy, it's my birthday. I'm gonna get a cake from Spider-Man. I was like, okay, we need to calm that down, like right now. Jamie Foxx, you were great. That was not good. And they improve him by just going whatever. And they even call out how dumb he used to look in the old movies when Connor's like, what about you? You used to have bad teeth and a comb over. Oh, it's so good.
They do such a good job at like not necessarily making fun of the movies that came before, but like pretty much directly addressing past criticisms while like kind of reaffirming reaffirming the people who still love them.
Yes, exactly. They were like, people that liked those movies are going to appreciate the fact that we know that we done messed up with that one. Electro, especially, because once he was actually Electro, I liked him. Outside of the fact that they somehow had electricity fix the gap in his teeth. Still don't get that one. But, and then the last one, I didn't know how they were going to handle the Goblin, but I'm glad they handled him the way they did, because the split personality thing with Defoe is great. And having the good side be out was awesome.
It's probably my favorite thing about his performance. The fact that he breaks the mask, because even people who love the Raimi movies can admit, like, the mask was stupid.
I thought it was cool, but I'll admit it wasn't great. The idea behind the mask was good, because, gonna be honest, it's very hard for me to imagine a situation where you get the Goblin mask in any form and it doesn't look a little bit stupid. Like, are you gonna have a Party City plastic mask?
A funny thing about that, have you seen the original masks for the Sam Raimi Spider-Man film?
No.
Hold on, I'll show you a picture. Okay. Keep talking.
But anyway, yeah, you get to have him just stumble into Feast with Aunt May. Of like, what? That's insane to me, that you have that be the altercation where they meet, and you very much finally get to have some stuff with Aunt May, which where I was like, oh boy, her death timer just started. You started going out of your way to do something with Aunt May. All right, let's see here. Yeah, very okay with what they went with. Very, 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 very okay with what they went with. That looks like that belongs on Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's not good. But anyway, yeah, the fact that you got to see a good chunk of like normal Norman Osborn before he got zapped was great. And those mad bastards. I love that they had to go out of their way to get the #1 Spider-Man memed line ever.
Oh, I'm something of a scientist myself.
I howled for a good minute when I heard him say that. I felt the prep. I felt them setting it up on the tee and just knock it clean out of the park. Like, you all know exactly what everyone wants to hear in this, and you nailed all of them. There's one specifically that I was so glad they did, and for the second I saw part of the setup in the trailer, my biggest thing in all of the MCU was I was like, damn it, I need to see Steve and Peggy dance. They need to have their dance, or I am going to burn down Marvel Studios. And then when we got through all of Endgame, and it hadn't happened, and then finally we get there, it was that one final sweet release where I was like, my boy got his dance. Steve is done in the MCU. I'm happy. I'm good.
Yep.
There's one of those moments, and it got delivered in spades at the end of it, and we'll talk about it when we get there. But within fast forwarding some stuff, we get that fight between Strange and Spider-Man inside the mirror dimension and leading up to it.
This is honestly one of my favorite scenes in the movie, and
oh,
it I hate saying this because I still really like that movie, but this fight scene was a better Doctor Strange movie than the first Doctor Strange. Because that first movie was too busy trying to be the origin story that he didn't really get to be Doctor Strange until the climax.
Yeah, Doctor Strange has been better in everything. I like that movie, but he's been better in everything than his own movie.
Yeah.
By far, everything he's in, he's done amazing. And yeah, like again, showing Peter's not stupid and doesn't need the biggest criticism. He can't do anything on his own. He won a fight against Doctor Strange with nothing but webs
and math.
That was great. I love so much that they show that this dude is smart. Peter Parker's actually smart, which I like. They do so much good for Peter in one freaking movie that it's insane. And he not only beats him, he steals the cube and steals his sling ring and gives it to Ned so that they can have the jolly adventures of the Furious Five back at Happy's apartment. Like, Zendaya is so good.
Hold on. Speaking of Happy, I think we completely glossed over something.
Oh, holy balls! Did we skip something? Daredevil was in the movie.
Yep.
Oh, I forgot. I can't believe we almost forgot that.
To be fair, he was so matter of fact in that scene that, like, if you haven't watched like the Daredevil Netflix show, you would just kind of assume he just kind of crashed into the MCU.
The best part, Charlie Cox didn't lie once in the entire lead up to this movie.
Why? Wait, what did he say?
Everyone, when Peter's in the interrogation room with those two guys, and he's like, "I didn't kill Mysterio," and then they're like, "Yeah, but these drones that you own did," and there's a dude handing Peter some files, and they're all like, "Oh, Daredevil's in the room with them," and all Charlie Cox responded with was, "Yeah, nice try. Those aren't my forearms."
He didn't say he wasn't in the movie.
He never once said he wasn't in the movie. He just said he's not in that scene. And then they do the dumb Daredevil joke that's in every live animated or whatever feature that he's in, where he does something that's so stupid that everyone should call him out on it for. And he just goes, "Yeah, I'm a really good lawyer." When he catches that brick, how did you do that?
I'm a really good lawyer.
I'm a really good lawyer. That was one of the things where I was like, they had a chance to make a joke, but they restrained themselves, and I was okay with it. I was partially expecting Charlie Cox to look at Jon Favreau and tell him he reminds him of his business associate. Because for those of you that don't remember, Jon Favreau played Foggy Nelson in the original Daredevil movie.
I remember that.
That is, oh man, there's so much, if you don't think about it, crossover because of how much Marvel's happened.
20 years of the stuff.
And it's none of the stuff in that, like, that was so smooth. They just rolled over and he's just sitting down and he's just like, cool. And like, they aren't making a big deal out of him being there either. They're just like, "Oh, thank you, Mr. Murdoch," and all this and that. It's great. And they purposely are like, "Hey, there was a reason." Again, we talked about this. We're like, "Oh man, I know they were like, we're going to be really nice and put 2 episodes of Hawkeye out just because we're good to our fans," or we didn't think that, hey, if we put 2 episodes of Hawkeye out, it'll line up perfectly to have Kingpin and Daredevil show up in the MCU in the same week.
They knew what they were doing.
Unreal. I can't stress it enough. It is the best time in the world to be a fan of comics.
It is.
Just to be a fan of the MCU or just movies.
Also, something I want to point out, have you ever gone back and watched like random interviews with Charlie Cox? He says his favorite superhero is Spider-Man. And he's such a fan of the character that I really hope that the next trilogy has some sort of like official crossover between him and Spidey.
Oh, I could see it happening, especially since, again, we'll get to something that happens. The dynamic to Spider-Man and everyone else is 1,000% different now. And let's just say Daredevil has figured out things on his own in the past, and he's not a dumb person.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyway, we get back and we start figuring all this stuff out. And this is where, again, when I say that it seems like they purposely had 2 other Spider-Man series happen just to have backstory for this, the cool stuff starts happening. They start talking about their backstories, about how you got to be careful where you fall. I fell into a super collider. I fell into a thing full of eels. Fully acknowledging just how dumb and played out supervillain origins are. They only have like 5 options for what can happen to them.
Yeah, either like an experiment goes wrong, or they fall in a place they're not supposed to be in.
Someone shot their parents or did something. It's just, you have so limited options, and there's just, like, I want to say variations on each, but it goes back to like the core 4 or 5. Getting to see for the first time Alfred Molina get to play Ock when he's not controlled by the tentacles was so freaking cool.
Yeah. I was also kind of wondering if, like, the little moments where Spidey's nanotech was controlling the tentacles. I wonder if that was like kind of partially a reference to Superior Spider-Man.
Maybe, could be. Well, that is one where I'd be very like, I get that some people liked that, but you guys did the unthinkable by making me like one. I still don't think they'd make me like a live action version of Superior Spider-Man because it's creepy.
I'm not even sure how they would pull it off.
I don't either, because you would need to dedicate a trilogy almost to that to make it worth your while.
Yeah.
And I don't need a trilogy dedicated to that. But they go through all of this attempted fixing, and Jay Jonah is on his way to try and find him because, this is the most involved they've ever had Jay Jonah be with Spider-Man either. Like, they put all these people in this for a reason. And they're going through all of this, and he's got Doc fixed. He's on his way to fix Norman. And he's getting Dylan there, got everybody else figured out through the fabricator, which is a really nice touch. It's just like, we're going to do what we need to do. And another thing that was missing from the first film, well, completely from the first film, partially from the rest of his movies, and they started finally doing it in Far From Home, was his spider sense. They go out of their way to have him use his spider sense, where the funniest way they used it ever. And I didn't understand it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, there's 2. One, and I guess with the IMAX viewings, like, you actually get to see the lines.
Mm-hmm.
The first time is when Doctor Strange kind of yoinks Peter out of his body.
Yep.
And then he's trying to get the box, and like his
body is acting just on spider sense. So good. I was like, how is he? Oh, it's just spider sense controlling his body. I'm like, that's so good.
And his reaction is perfect. Like, that was the coolest thing that's ever happened, but don't ever do it again.
Don't ever do it again. Don't do that to me ever again. But I mean, we finally get to see like the best interpretation of, like, they don't know what's actually wrong. Like, that power is so OP. It might be one of the most OP things in all comics. But they went out of their way to be like, Peter doesn't exactly know what's wrong when that happens. He has to go with his gut. He just knows something is wrong.
Yeah, that's kind of the point of Spidey sense. Like, he senses something, but
yeah, it's not like quite in the earlier movies. Like I believe it's in 2. Yeah, in 2 when Ock throws the car at Toby and he just goes crap and then ducks right underneath it. It's not quite that pinpoint, but he gets it, and that makes me happy because that is a good way to use a spider sense to make it not seem unbelievably busted. And they also show a way to show that it's not busted later on, that everyone never realizes how the spider sense works when we get to see the other Spider-Men. But you go through this and you finally find out when Defoe turns back into Old Goblin. Norman's on a sabbatical, honey.
this is clearly the role that Defoe was born to play.
It was, and I was reading interviews with him where he went, if I'm doing this, it is not a cameo. It is not some glorified stint, and I am doing my own stunts.
Yep.
Because in his own words, that earns me the right to play the character again. To him, he had to earn the right to be the Goblin again. He holds it that high that he had to earn it. That's pretty high praise from Willem Dafoe.
Yep.
Just saying. Willem Dafoe, by the way, proud to claim him, is from Appleton, Wisconsin. I will be so happy to say that whenever I can. Nice. That boy's a Wisconsinite. I'm so proud to have him. Him and Mark Ruffalo. I believe Mark Ruffalo's from Kenosha.
And I gotta be honest, he is like 1,000 times better here than he was in the Amazing Spider, the first Spider-Man.
Oh, absolutely. And then like the little bits that you had him in Spider-Man 2, outside of, I meme the crap out of it every time I play a video game or something. I always go, avenge me! But it's like, that's what you had to work with back in the day. Like they were just like, we're making a Spider-Man movie. Now it's like, we have intention. And you get to have Willem Dafoe be the main villain of another trilogy 20 years later.
It really comes full circle, and we'll get to that.
That's insane. Again, this movie shouldn't work as well as it does. And the fight scenes, there's like, for you that have played the Spider-Man PS4 game, there's literal exact copied, like when Peter kicks Norman up in the air, web zips him, hits him with his feet, and then curls him back around and slams him into the ground. That's an exact copied takedown from the Spider-Man PS4 game.
Oh,
like,
really?
Beat for beat taken. Oh, 100%. And like when he throws him up into the ceiling, grabs him and shoulder tackles him through the floor, they never really showed in the first movie that Willem Dafoe got a strength increase from that goblin serum. And they made him so terrifying in this movie. It's nuts.
Also, I kind of have to say, this is probably the first time that Tom Holland's Peter Parker has had a personal vendetta against a supervillain.
Absolutely. Because he would have had one with Mysterio if Mysterio was still alive.
Yep.
Yeah, and you borderline got like Batman and Joker levels of messing with each other, which give or take, the Goblin in that had that, but you haven't had that on the screen before. Because like when he was just wailing on him and Norman's just smiling at him. Just like, oh, this Green Goblin again. Ah! I never thought in my life I needed to have Willem Dafoe be Green Goblin again. Ah. But then we start to get into something where, again, I had to talk with my youth pastor. We got to have, finally, I thought they were going to go this whole trilogy without saying it.
Oh, yeah, here we go.
We get down into the scene where I cried like 5 times in this movie. And this is what started it. I knew the second, and they again going back, they redo the very ending of Spider-Man 1, but they have the Goblin be successful this time when he hits Aunt May with that glider, and then just takes her out, and she's getting back, and you realize that she's not going to make it. I'm just like, okay. I knew the second that Aunt May started being more useful in these movies that she was going to be gone. And this is in a trilogy. I'm like, someone's dying. I was like, it's either it was MJ or it was Aunt May or both, because people hate Peter being happy. And those of you that don't know, they actually said it correctly in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
That's how it was originally written back in the day. You get to hear Aunt May give the responsibility speech. And I was like, you're just not going to do it because Uncle Ben isn't in the movies. But you get this year, with great power must also come great responsibility. Which is with my youth pastors like, well, that's stupid. They screwed the line up. I'm like, no, they actually said it right. It's like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah. It's one of those Luke, I am your father things where it's just like, it's so said another way that they don't realize that they're actually misquoting it.
Now, far be it for me to speak ill of the dead, but my kind of hot take on Uncle Ben is, if I'm being completely honest, outside of the great responsibility take or the great responsibility speech, there isn't a whole lot to his character, which is why this movie and Aunt May's delivery of the speech made it completely okay to not have Uncle Ben in this trilogy.
Absolutely. Uncle Ben and Thomas and Martha Wayne are never meant to make it longer than 10 minutes into the first movie. Half an hour pushing it. They are characters that are meant to die because it's pointless to have them otherwise. Their entire, like Strange has it, what did he say? Their death.
It is their fate to die.
It is their fate to die, and it's like he says how their fate is 1,000 times more important than like their potential or who they are or something like that. The fact that they die is more important than what they could do if they didn't. And you get to see that happen, and she goes, and Happy gets to have a great moment with him taking himself out to get arrested so that Peter can get out of there, because he knows exactly what just happened. He doesn't know how it happened.
He just knows.
He just knows. And then we get to when my soul left my body. And folks, when you know something's coming and a movie still makes you feel like it's something you didn't think was coming, that is when you know you pulled something off properly. Because everyone, their mother, their dog, and their goldfish knew that Toby and Andrew were in this. No matter how much they were forced to sit through billions of interviews and say, no, I'm not. The amount of leaked footage, leaked pictures.
One of my favorite interviews was, I think it was like the Today Show, where, the hosts were like they were clearly baiting him to admit, oh, come on, just say it. You're in the Spider-Man movie. Like, just go on, admit it. And he's like, okay, fine. I get it. You guys are good at your jobs, but I'm better at mine.
And also, I felt so bad for Andrew because, like, I didn't know that Tobey Maguire was still even acting. Like, apparently still does, like, a movie a year. He's basically retired and just does a movie role when he wants to. Toby was very eager to just sit in his house and go, I'm going to avoid interviews and not have to worry about them asking me anything. And Andrew, who was like, what was it? Tick, Tick, Boom?
Yeah, he had junkets, like, he had 2 junkets in a row. One for The Eyes of Tammy Faye, the other for Tick, Tick, Boom. And then, thank God, like, award shows don't really start until January, because now that the movie's out, he doesn't have to listen to anymore. Are you in the Spider-Man movie?
Yeah.
Are you going to be in the Spider-Man movie?
You could actually hear about his movies. Like, he had to every other week be in an interview about his stuff where they just went, oh, but by the way, let's talk about, like, guys, If I haven't said it in the 8 billionth interview, I'm not saying it in this one. But you start to see, like, this is the outside of, I think, the most well done, and this is a weird compliment to give, the most well done death in a comic book movie ever is when Gwen dies in The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Mm-hmm.
When he goes down to get her and her head cracks off the concrete, they make her death a billion times worse. And then all he has to do is hold her, and you see blood coming out of her nose, and you just know instantly the entire inside of her brain is just mush. She's just gone. And Andrew's selling it with it's about as good. Andrew is very good at crying.
He is. He's a very emotional actor in that he really wears his heart on his sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
And this movie could have easily been him phoning it in.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he knows how to phone it in.
No, he doesn't. And you can't tell me again where Tom Holland and Andrew Garfield both said that if they got to play a superhero, that it would be to get to play Spider-Man. You can't tell me that the second that Andrew Garfield got a call going, so, hey, we're going to have you show up as Spider-Man again, that he went, all right, we're doing this. There was no chance. He was like, I'm not going to half-ass this. Not at all. And because I get to represent the film trilogy that I did one last time. And we get to Ned and MJ again to where they're showing the swords and all of this and the ancient whatever, talk about his family history and all that. And we go like, I just wish where he was. And the thing of just taking the sling ring away from Doctor Strange, which I guess you have to have magical training to use because Strange brings it up later where he's questioning the fact that Ned was able to open a portal.
Oh, yeah.
Like, even he's shocked, like, you were able to open a portal? Yeah, I did. And he goes, huh. And then just walks away. That's where I'm like, bro, Hobgoblin's coming. We're getting Hobgoblin, and I'm very okay with it. But just like, I just want to see him. And it was even, how do I want to explain this? The Amazing Spider-Man films were shot in a much darker way. I don't mean like they were, brooding, emo, blah, blah, but like alley shots were a lot darker.
Yep.
It looked like you were looking at the lighting of Amazing Spider-Man when you saw Andrew there. And that was great. And they're like, okay, it's Peter. And like, still in my head, I'm like, the eyes on that costume are really white. That is one thing I really liked about the Amazing Spider-Man costume, which to this day is the Amazing Spider-Man 2 costume, which is still my favorite version of the classic red and blue Spider-Man costume. And like, I don't know how to explain when something is happening. And like, when I said I had an out-of-body experience, that was legitimately the closest feeling where I could have, where like, I had a different feeling than when I got to have the portal scene in Endgame. Like, Endgame felt like this is the coolest thing that was naturally led up to and was the course of what was going to be. We never got to have this moment.
This, on the other hand, was like we knew something was going to happen. We just didn't really know the how and the why.
The how and the why, and also this was something that didn't need to happen.
Mm-hmm.
When he popped through that portal and it finally became like a real thing, that Andrew Garfield was standing there again in my favorite classic Spider-Man costume and like trying to figure out what's going on, I legit shut down. I stopped processing.
The second time I saw this movie, in the Dolby theater, when Andrew showed up, there was a huge applause.
There was, and it made me so happy that people are starting to get the theaters again. I get the timing is whatever. I'm crying. I miss big theater experiences so damn much. I got to watch this alone for the first time, and I will thank Dave every day for the rest of my life that I got to have the experience that I did, because I think I would have made the people sitting next to me miserable for just how excited and just out of control I was for how happy for everything that was happening in front of me. When I got to go watch this with like friends of mine that knew this was happening, on top of people that didn't, I was in a row of nothing but like, I want to say 12 to 13-year-old kids in front of me, and then all solid adults that would have been old enough to be watching the original trilogy when I was a kid. And my brain just it straight went into standby when that happened, because I was like, this isn't actually happening. Like, I knew this was going to happen. This is not happening. Then when I saw it the second time, I heard an end game level pop from half of the amount of people that it took to equal the one that I got in a full packed, like Dolby surround massive screen theater. Half the amount of people made as big of pop for just Andrew coming through that portal. And then it was twice as fucking loud, excuse my language, when Toby just saunters through with no big rhyme or reason. But the thing I was going to get about how they do really good with the spider sense and just MJ being MJ, where they're like, again, with secret identities, it's so ingrained that was a big deal everywhere except the MCU, that both of them were like, why would I tell people that? I don't keep an ID on me. That'd be really stupid. But
so yeah, it's like it defeats the whole purpose of
the anonymous superhero thing. But it's like, prove you're Spider-Man. Okay, you're a deeply mistrusting person. I get it. All he does is stick the ceiling. I'm like, that's so good. He didn't need to shoot webs. He didn't need to do anything. He just got it. Crawl around. Like, the characters in the movie are thinking this moment is as cool as what you are. That is what's so great about like that. Like, even them who are in this universe can't believe this is happening. And then like he just goes around, gets it, whatever. Okay, we're good. And then I legit started like broken faucet crying of happiness when they're like, okay, find Peter. And you don't even see Toby in his costume. He's just so classic old school Spider-Man that he just walks through and he's like,
oh, hey guys.
so I just walked through the thing here. Like, it's old man processing new kid stuff. It was so good. And then immediately they're just like, okay, that's not good. And they just immediately do the exact same flip to do that and just, oh.
And then this begins the web shooter discussion.
I'm going to say it probably 6 more times before we're done with this review. This movie should not have worked as well as it did.
It really shouldn't.
I just have this, for how much I just know Amy Pascal went head over heels, just, I'm going to make a universe as fast as MCU with Spider-Man, to where she just, I don't like Amy Pascal. I really don't. She went out of her way to show that she was ahead of the decisions that got all the stupid crap done that tanked the Amazing Spider-Man movies. And I'm just imagining sitting in a room where they're hashing out how this movie is going to get done, and Kevin Feige's like, no, Amy, sit in your chair. We're going to make this good. I am not having these 3 freaking Spider-Men meet each other and it be stupid. I could not imagine Kevin, who would have cried until he went into a coma if this would have went badly.
No, they did everything they needed to get this right.
Exactly. And it's just, and it starts the discussion of all of the cool stuff you wanted to have talked about. They talk about their areas where they want to meet. Chrysler Building. You get to have Andrew one up a little bit. Empire State, better view. He's like, yeah, you're right. That is a really good view. Where it's not like always one Spider-Man's better than the other, because in all rights, you could have just had Toby sit all day and go, guys, I'm the original. I'm the coolest out of all of you. And he didn't do, and they didn't have him do that. They were not like, we're just going to shit on Tom's movies. It's like everyone's equal.
Yeah. And if anything, like Toby was kind of like he was the mentor but not in like a patronizing way. He was just like, oh, you know what? I've been there. I know what's up. So let me help you through this.
Exactly. He was kind of the Uncle Ben these movies never had. I made jokes that if somehow they didn't have him be Spider-Man, how much balls they would have to make him be Uncle Ben. And he just kind of became Uncle Ben in a Spider-Man costume.
I mean, if you've noticed, Peter's full name is Peter Benjamin Parker.
Mm-hmm. It's I'm trying to not get too hyped because I'm going to literally start turning into a ball of tears. I had to console myself because just going back into that first scene where you get to see it just all, and and then they go and they meet him. You want to know who else is really good at crying on screen? Tom Holland.
Yeah. When, like, that was one of the times where I was kind of losing it, because I don't know, there's just something about seeing Tom Holland just like completely destitute, like broken, and then his friends just like not even saying anything, just embracing him.
Yep. And
that that broke me.
And you know what helps? And this is nothing against Toby, and this is nothing against Andrew. It helps that Tom actually kind of looks like a teenager that just lost his aunt. It helps that he still somewhat actually resembles the age they're trying to pull off.
Yep.
Like, he looks like he should be that age. He's 5'8". He's about how tall I was when I was a sophomore in high school. He's still, give or take, he's more jacked than most people are at his age. But it helps that he actually looks like a kid that's going through this. And, like, in one movie alone, they helped kind of build up the total 20 minutes, I think, of screen time that Aunt May had in the other two movies to bolster up, like, no, she meant the world to him. And getting to hear those two go through with him, he's like, don't give me the you know what I've been through speech, because I don't want to hear it. I want to kill him. And, like, they even got to add flavor with Andrew, where we never got to see him after Gwen died. Like, we got to see a little bit with the Rhino scene, but then they kind of say that he went off the rails a little and stopped pulling punches, which, for those of you that don't know, if Spider-Man punched a regular individual, they're dead as hard as he can. They're done. People like to forget that he is stupid strong.
He is like break your bones kind of strong.
Absolutely. Because, like, there's even someone in the comments could correct me. I don't know what the title of it is, but there's a scene where Spider-Man's fighting someone and there's a civilian there, and, like, the villain, like, quick switches or something, and Spider-Man accidentally decks them and almost kills them because he didn't hold his punch back. And he stops at the last second and almost killed a person just from a regular pulled punch. And getting to have the great responsibility get together with all of them, and the way that Andrew is again, it's very much that you can tell. Another thing they did well is show how much of time on the job they've had. Like, Andrew's still very busted up, and you can tell it's not been long since Gwen, like, in his whatever. Toby's talking about it like he's on basically like his third marriage at this point, with, like, bad stuff going. Like, he was incredibly calm when he's explaining everything with Uncle Ben and the murder of that guy from the Skulls gang. And he's just like, yeah, it didn't help, dude. It just got worse. I got bitter. It's not good. Please. She didn't die for a reason. I know there's never going to be Oscars in Marvel movies, but there's a couple of moments in this movie where people deserve recognition just how well some of these scenes are put together.
The one for Andrew, I think, is when MJ is like is falling. Tom tries to go down and rescue her. He can't make it, so Andrew comes in, gets closure for failing to save Gwen, and then you see him start to break down. First he says to MJ, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, are you okay?"
You okay? It's him going, someone else didn't have to go through what I did. And that was the Peggy and Steve dancing moment for me. The second I saw MJ falling, I'm like, please let something happen to where Andrew has to save her. And it will be one of the coolest moments in the movie. And he does it with so effortlessly, makes it look easy to where it's like it's something he's done 1,000 times, because you can picture in his head every day he thought of a different way he could have tried to get MJ out of that, because there was still even debris in the way when he was trying to get to MJ, and you see him clear all that shit out and zip to her immediately versus trying to shoot the web through the debris and bring her back to him. But
so good.
It's so good. And you get to have all three Peters in a lab together working on stuff. A moment I never thought I needed in my life, but it was the coolest thing.
They even do the Peter Parker point.
Yes. it's so close. Peter, you mean me? Him? Yeah, Peter Parker? Yeah, all of us. Computer! And you, again, super small moments that just show how much these papers have thought of. Where he's just like, yeah, I've cured Kirk before. It's not a big deal. It's just not a big deal. Okay, cool. And then it's like Toby sitting there going, I'm pretty sure I think I could figure out how to fix Norman. Thinking about it a long time, actually. That's perfect. Of course he would be thinking about how he could have reversed it after he died. There it has to be something that haunted him for the rest of his life, that his best friend's dad is dead. He never had a chance to fix it.
And there's also kind of a big point of contrast between Toby and Andrew, where Toby's he's talking about how he made things work with his MJ. They're happily married and all that, and Andrew's like, oh, that's great. I don't really have time for Peter Parker stuff.
Yeah, and he's just like, no, and then it's very much, you never got to see Andrew have a movie after where he came out of his slump and tried to be happy again, because again, people might forget Shailene Woodley was almost Mary Jane. In Spider-Man 2.
She was on set and everything.
Yeah. And I would have been actually very okay with her being MJ. I thought that was actually a really good choice. And it was a really good choice to cut her too, because to be honest, that would have been moving a little too quick in my opinion. But him telling her just not to give up, telling him to not give up, there's very much a Toby being Andrew's it's bad, man. But trust me, it can get better. There's a couple of moments where Toby was very much being there for him, being like, I've been through this, man. It's very okay. Being Uncle Ben for both of them. Yeah. And
then there's the, again, continuing the web shooter.
What are those? Those are web shooters. You can, whoa! Just have that panic attack. How'd you do that? How'd you do that? The most amazing thing to them. Not the multiverse. It's that he has naturally organic webs.
Everything about their interactions was perfect.
They did pretty much everything. There's a few that I'm going to bring up that they didn't do. One that I'm not shocked by, and one that I am kind of shocked by. So, we have in these movies about how, hey, I got my version of this guy. I got my version of this guy. I got my version of this guy. I am kind of shocked that there wasn't a moment where they're working in the lab and Jay Jonah comes up on the TV and Andrew goes, I guess some things don't change. Because it's you have have his JJ there. I'm very shocked. I would almost bet that's in a deleted scene.
Probably.
That they thought they didn't need. But also, like Andrew's Spider-Man until the end of the movie doesn't see Goblin. I'm kind of shocked at some point when they're on the bridge or on the Statue of Liberty that Andrew didn't go, great, another douchebag in a glider, or like something like that.
Oh, that would have been cool.
Because that's like the one crossover thing they didn't do, that there was 2 goblins. 3, actually. But, yeah.
Oh, right. Franco.
Technically, there was a 3rd one. But, yeah, we don't need to talk about Franco Goblin. But they did bring him up, though. We're like, yeah, my best friend tried to kill me, and then he died in my arms. He's like, I promise I will not become a supervillain and try and kill you. And Andrew's just like, good call. Don't be that person. Well, no, they actually did kind of reference freaking Dahan. Because of all people, Andrew's like, don't be that guy.
Oh.
Dahan did it to him. He's the one that's the reason freaking Gwen's dead. And they get that again of all that, but then we finally get to the coup de grace of the coolest stuff that I didn't think I needed. I think there's moments in this that are cooler than Endgame. There's a singular scene in it that, to me, is on levels of Cap finally getting to say Avengers Assemble, on point with him finally lifting Mjolnir. And that's when, and like, you get all the setup of him talking about bringing them there, where he's actually talking with J. Jonah, and then they start having the fights where they're going through, and they obviously can't operate as a team. That I actually thought was pretty great, because they're 3 solo dudes. They're not meant to do this, and they all have the same name. They're all called Spider-Man. How are they supposed to communicate? That was still pretty good. Getting to see them, and also in a enclosed space, getting to see one of them like actually web zip each other. That was pretty clever.
Mm-hmm.
But they get through. Oh, before we even get there, hold on. They start talking about the villains that they fought.
Yeah. This is the part that I really like.
Go ahead.
Tom is talking about, going up into space and fighting Thanos. Toby mentions Venom.
Yep.
And then Andrew's like, you guys fought aliens? I'm lame. I fought a Russian in a mech suit.
And a Russian in a rhino costume. And then all of a sudden he's like, I'm still trying to get around the fact that you fought a villain in space. He's like, no, that's cool. Dude, you're not lame. No, you're not. You are amazing. You are amazing. He's like, you need to hear that. He's like, no, I kind of needed to hear you say that. It's a self-talk thing. I don't like it. And he finally admits what's pissing him off so much about Andrew Spider-Man. It's just constantly making fun of himself. I was like, another Spider-Man is referencing something that people didn't like about a Spider-Man movie. But also one small thing, the back cracking scene. That was such old men comparing their war wounds. Like, I just got this middle back thing. Oh yeah, I get it too. Where he's like, oh, yeah, that is pretty good. But
that might also be a reference to, Toby's previous back issues. I think.
I didn't know that was a thing.
It was somewhere around the time he filmed like Seabiscuit, and where like he had some sort of surgery that almost prevented him from reprising his role in Spider-Man 2.
Holy crap, I did not know that. Wow. Okay. No, I did not know that at all. That very well could be it. But they get the Avengers thing, which I was very happy they mentioned that, because that's the one thing left where they're like, we have no freaking idea what that is, guy. Like, we're not allowed to have that in our movies.
I think his Toby's delivery of that is great. It's like, the Avengers, that's great. What is it?
I don't see how this is helping. Toby finally getting pissed off at these kids for not listening to each other. That's awesome. And then just like, he's like, all right. And they finally start working as a team. It's like, we take them out the board one at a time. I felt like I was 12 years old. I felt like I was a child. You see them jump off that scaffolding, and all three of them scream in joy that they're swinging through the air. And you get to see the moonlight shot of all them flipping up and then landing in the 3-point stance on the Statue of Liberty's head. That might be in the top 3 best 5 seconds in a comic book movie ever.
It was just so cool.
It's just, it's like, why do I watch comic book movies? That moment. I'm not going to forget that for as long as I live. That is going to live rent-free in my brain for the rest of my life. And it was a well-built moment that wasn't even that special, but it was just pulled off well. And just showing that they love doing what they do, and you know that they love doing what they do. And it wasn't like Toby was up in front, like all that. They're very okay with showing that this is still Tom's movie, even though a giant reason why people thought this movie was cool is that the other two showed up.
Mm-hmm. But in all fairness, like, this is probably Tom Holland's best performance.
100%.
In like, even including his Avengers movies, I think this is like the best performance that he's given.
It's the most meat he's got to chew on in a role ever. Well, not in a role ever. He's obviously done other things, but like, and as far as a comic book movie, it's the most he's got to do.
Mm-hmm.
And like, just in the situations, he had to do the gambit of pretty much everything. Be unbelievably pissed off, be super sad, be incredibly happy. He had to run every emotion through this movie, and he pulled off all of them. And just the systematic taking out of all these people and the cool moments. Like, hey, Dr. Connors, how's it going? It's just the light. It's just, that whole, we could go through scene by scene talking about how cool that freaking taking out all of them was. But they'd just be sitting here, and like the one that I want to bring up, which was the coolest, where it was like when they bring Doc Ock back, and they like, I was for a second, I'm like, don't be those people that make Alfred Molina evil again. I'm like, they can't do that. When they have him help, and then just punk Dylan out and be like, there you go, and he just drops him. Oh, I need more not evil Doc Ock in my life.
Same.
Oh, he's so good.
By the way, have you noticed that these, like, the Spider-Man movie, like the Spider-Men are in more of the movie than Doctor Strange?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's kind of nuts how much they're in that. And like that adds on to the they go through and they get them all cycled, and part of me thinks, man, they're either setting up, or we're gonna get soon where Peter trains him. They get that moment where Max and Peter duck down, and he goes, "You all right?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm all spent. You're good." And he finally takes his mask off, and he starts talking. He's like, "I understand. It's all good, Max." He's like, "You didn't see me." He's like, "No offense. You're a young kid. You got a good face. You're from Queens, and you help a lot of homeless people." I just always figured you were black. He's like, "Oh," and then Andrew doesn't even make a comment. He's just like, he's genuinely upset that he disappointed him. He's like, "Oh, man, I'm sorry."
What's funny is, like, everyone who knows Miles Morales is like they just have the biggest smile on their face.
He's like, "Yeah, I'm sure it is somewhere." I'm like, "Okay, Sony. So next trilogy, we're gonna get to meet him, just maybe." But that was just calling out the shots, because like the last time they mentioned Miles, not a lot of people caught it. The character that Donald Glover plays is also Prowler, who is Miles's uncle. And when they're talking about the weapons and stuff like that, he says, "Just be careful around there. My nephew lives in that neighborhood." I was like, it's been a movie and a half since you guys mentioned Miles. And even Tom is like, maybe Miles should have a trilogy instead of me. Because he said he doesn't want to be playing Spider-Man when he's 30. And despite how much Amy went out of her way to go, "Yep, we're getting another trilogy." And then all of a sudden, everyone else went, "No." And she went, "Oh, maybe I spoke too soon." Yeah, how about you shut up? The kid doesn't want to be Spider-Man, which, again, that's a big decision. He doesn't need to be. There's a lot of other options.
Yeah, and also just like we're just coming off this movie. Like I don't need to hear news about another trilogy at least
No.
until like I don't know, summer.
No, and what I was very okay with after hearing this was Kevin Feige confirms they're working on a Spider-Man project. Not what it is, not that it's with Tom, not that it's with anything. It's just Spider-Man, because that could be anything, anything at all, which I'm very okay with. But part of me, and you're going to have to remind me, was there like when Strange comes back out of the portal because he opens it back up and he zips him through. When Andrew goes, you were at the Grand Canyon, he could have used your help, you know. But and then you get the whole, you just opened a portal? Yes, sir, I did. And even Strange is like, okay, a little bit of magic in you, kid. We're gonna have to look out for you later. He like immediately makes a mental note of, okay, that kid's gonna be someone to watch out for. Goes up, and was there a line in the original trilogy in that first movie where the Goblin said, "Can Spider-Man come out to play?"
I vaguely remember.
His part of me
It's
feels
been
like
a
he
while
said,
since I've seen them.
part of me feels like he said that. But like, can the Spider-Man come out to play? The best part about Defoe's Goblin lines is even then and now, they are the most corny, ham-fisted lines on the planet. But the fact that they're coming from Defoe as the mind-warped Goblin make them sound great.
And the fact that it's been like what, like 19 years.
It's going
Ish.
on 20.
Yeah, like 19, borderline 20 years since his first appearance. Like he's got more rasp in his voice. Like and just the delivery is more sinister. Plus, when he's not wearing the mask and you can actually see his face, it just adds that much more impact to his actions.
I almost bet Willem Dafoe requested to not have that damn helmet on.
I'm pretty sure that's what happened too.
Because that helmet is worn for about 30 seconds. And it's broken immediately. He wanted to act it out because you could tell that, like, in the interviews and everything, he said that if he was going to do this role again, he was going to do this role again. And not many people act better with their face than Willem Dafoe.
Pretty much all of his acting is in his face.
Yeah, he's got Jim Carrey levels of rubber face with how he wants to do stuff, and it's terrifying. Willem Dafoe is a terrifying man when he wants to. And the best part about one thing that I appreciate with films when they do the unnecessary, when they throw the cube back at him and you see that it's got the goblin orb in it when they do the close-up. I made sure to watch the second time I watched it because that thing spins when it goes back to him. And like, you know how they wouldn't have needed to have the orb in there before the close-up where you show it for Strange? No, it's in there when they throw it back to him. You can actually see it in the corner as they tilt to it before they even get to the shot of where you would have seen it. You can actually see the socketed orb in the thing. I'm like, that's an unnecessary editing detail that you didn't need that I greatly appreciated. And they have that fight, like you said, they get the save. And again, magic users or whatever, you got a little bit of the cape with Ned. That was another thing. Being a little bit special there. You get that awesome save with Toby or with Andrew. You also get the save with Toby. I don't remember who he did. But you got to see the recreation of that one diving shot where he goes down with his hand up. It's done with the mask off, shooting to save someone. I don't remember who he does. I think it might be Flint or Dylan.
Might be.
But yeah, and then you finally get Sunset. and they have that fight. I did not expect to have a dragged out, knuckle down, bare-fisted brawl between those two.
Emotionally, it was just kind of perfect.
It was. And you got to see the instant that he came back, but all he needed to do was say like two things. He's like, I dealt the blow, but you're the one that killed her. You put her there. Just like, you're so good at your job, Willem. You're so good at your job. And Toby stopping the goblin from getting stabbed again just to get stabbed in the back was pretty perfect.
Yep.
Oh, that freaking fastball pass from him to get the cure in him. Oh, it was so good. And then you and me both also said, I believe in the Hawkeye reviews, that we were very against that they don't need to do a one more day story because it'd be stupid. For those of you that don't know, One More Day, it's called One More Day, right? Am I screwing that up? One More Day is a storyline where Peter's identity gets out and then Aunt May dies in the crossfire. And I'm pretty sure it is because of the goblin, if I'm not mistaken. But it's the weird, I believe it's the Amazing Spider-Man style goblin where he's actually like a weird creature, like looks like a goblin. But Marvel, in their infinite wisdom, and actually it's not just Marvel, DC is kind of the same way, and I hate it. They don't like characters being married because it normalizes them.
Yeah, so this is like the infamous story where Mephisto comes in and it's like, I can save your Aunt May, but it's gonna cost you.
Yeah, and he stupidly and out of nowhere, in the most obvious way, they're like, so Marvel doesn't like me being married. I'll sacrifice my marriage to Mary Jane to save Aunt May. And I don't mean to sound like that guy. A lot of people were upset when Marissa Tomei was cast as Aunt May because she didn't look like her great-grandmother. She's always been Aunt May.
Not great Aunt May.
Yeah. Marissa Tomei was in her 50s. It's not her fault that she takes very good care of herself. But in the comics, May is portrayed as like an 80-year-old woman. I don't mean to be that guy, but in that situation, in the One More Day story, you're bringing back a person that was probably going to die naturally of old age in 5 years just to get rid of his marriage to Mary Jane.
On the one hand, I kind of get the idea of like, it's Peter Parker. He does what he can for other people and puts himself last.
Yeah, I get that.
But at the same time, this was just a stupid, like, kind of knowing the business of, like, knowing behind the scenes of like the industry. It's a stupid way to get rid of that marriage.
It is. And if y'all want to look up how much they're against this kind of stuff, go look into the stupid crap that happened very recently with Batwoman. If you want to see some stupid crap. Where they were gung-ho and then got incredibly gun-shy. It's not just Marvel, it's comics, period. And I kind of hate it. But yeah, so we're getting towards the climax now that Defoe is cured. And it got to be where I'm like, I don't know how they're fixing this. And I have to ask you, since you've seen it twice, I almost saw it a fourth time today, and I was going to look. In the riffs, I made out 3 people. Kraven, Scorpion, and Rhino.
I'm trying to think if there were any others, and I might look this up later, but those are the only 3 to me that like I could easily picture.
Because in the first opening rift, I saw Kraven was on the left, Scorpion was in the middle, and there was a random, like, what looked like a regular-ish looking woman to the right. And then on the second one, I was so focused on how big Rhino was that there's other things sitting beside him that are clearly made to be in those silhouettes. But there's that. So that's foreshadowing, which, again, y'all have Michael Mondo, of all people, to be Scorpion. That dude is going to be one sinister, murderous a-hole. For anyone that knows anyone that's Michael Mando's done, that dude can be a nutcase.
Do you think Scorpion's going to be like the next villain?
I kind of hope he is, or if he's one of the two, because Scorpion's kind of one of those people that, like the Rhino, is a great villain to have there, to be a person to have fight scenes with, but they don't have a mission of their own to kind of make a movie out of. Like, unless they're going to do the original way that the Scorpion got his suit, where J. Jonah Jameson like paid someone to get the Scorpion suit for Scorpion to take down Spider-Man. If they do it that way, I could see them starting a new trilogy with just that movie. I could be okay with that, because they could have him readjusting to his new life and all that. But I just need to see. I need to see Michael Mando as Matt Gargan. I need to see it yesterday. Ever since they showed that Scorpion tattoo and they showed that he was Matt Gargan, I was like, I need to see that. And I also need to have the Vulture come back for a little bit now that that relationship's different. And you get to see him go up and he's like, they're coming through and I can't stop him. He's like, I don't know what to do. And he's like, and then all of a sudden he's like, well, what if everyone forgot who Peter Parker was? And then Strange looks at him and goes, I'm not doing that. You need to understand what would happen if it did that. He's like, it would work. He's like, yeah, but it would work. And then you see Benedict have a break in his voice when he goes, everyone who love you, we'd never know who you were. You would cease to exist. He's like, if that's what needs to happen, it needs to happen. Like that's the most Peter Parker thing ever. Mm-hmm. Peter did it to help everyone. This is such an easy fix to do that stupid storyline ever. For a multitude of reasons, this worked perfect. And we'll get into it once we hit the end credit scene. But yeah, this was the perfect way to end this trilogy for many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of nuts how naturally that came to a head. And I saw them doing it, and I thought I was going to be pissed off by the end of the movie, but I ended up really liking it.
I have to give credit to PJ Campbell for pointing this out, but this whole trilogy has basically been one big origin story. Mm-hmm. Like, I remember when Kevin Feige said that Homecoming wasn't going to be an origin movie. He wasn't wrong, but it turned out the entire trilogy was his origin.
Yeah, we got to have a high school level Peter Parker for 3 movies. That was awesome.
They called this like the Great Power trilogy.
Yeah, pretty much. And you don't get to do that with many people. Spider-Man is a character you can get so much out of. The fact that he got a trilogy origin story, basically, it shows just how much history-wise, character-wise, and just love-wise that character has.
And when you really think about it, like, compared to all the comic book storylines that haven't been adapted, like, in live action, we have barely scratched the surface.
They haven't even opened up the barrel.
Nope.
They are just looking at the labels of the package that the barrel is in. They ain't done jack with this, and it's kind of nuts. And you have all them forget he says his goodbyes. There's a really great joke at the end there when he comes down, he's just like, it's what we do. He hugs them. Get you see Tom Holland say, I love you guys, and hug the 2 people that got to play Spider-Man before him, who he grew up watching play Spider-Man, knowing he one day wanted to play Spider-Man, and then say goodbye to them as he finished off his trilogy. That's so fucking cool. Excuse my language again, but And then he goes away. He's like, oh, that's great. You're in so much pain. Oh, yeah, it's bad.
Had to get one more jab in there.
Had to get one more jab. It's like, you okay? Yeah, no, it's fine. I've been stabbed a lot before. It's okay. But yeah, and then they get down to, which I guess we can discuss a little bit. This is going to end up being 2 hours long, but I don't care. We get to be down to the scene where you get to see Peter trying to explain this to them. And the fact that they have a couple of pump fakes in there, whether he's going to do it or not, and finally having him decide that he needs to be Spider-Man and help people, and that, like, whether helping people is better for him or not, he's finally learned the lesson that, like, he's been needing to do for a while throughout all these movies about deciding what is more important to him.
Mm-hmm.
And Spider-Man is a character that is based around responsibilities. People may think that's corny because of the quote that he gets given, but it's 100% what the character is.
It is like it is pretty much like his core character trait.
It is, absolutely. His raison d'etre, if you will. But yeah, and then just the fact that he backpedals and doesn't tell her, or doesn't attempt to tell her, just, it does wonders in a little scene. And just like, he sees that those two got exactly what they wanted out of life. And all it needed to do was for them to not know who he was. That is painful.
Mm-hmm.
That sucks. But it's Peter Parker. He's Marvel's favorite punching bag, and he's just the guy that has to put up with it because he's the guy that can.
So after that, we see Peter going to Aunt May's grave, and notice how she's not next to Uncle Ben.
That I thought was really weird. They have gone out of their way to not even show. This was the one where I'm finally like, okay, they're going to show the joint graves.
And then
they're finally saying they did.
It's, fine, whatever. So
yeah.
Well, here's the thing. Ben Parker has to exist in this because, there was like a brief reference to him in Homecoming, and in Far From Home, he's carrying
his briefcase.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, it's weird.
Maybe it's just a production oversight because a lot of this was shot during COVID, so maybe they just like forgot to put a joint grave or something. I don't know.
Yeah, or they were just focusing on May, and I don't know.
That could be it too.
Yeah, either way, the focus was his relationship with May, and the fact that he got to have one last scene with Happy, and you got to see an interaction with a person that was incredibly close to him from his past life and just no idea, and Peter just be happy with it, and it to be happy of all people. It just, that discussion at the grave is just like, no, it'll move on. And that perfect quote, when you help someone, you help everyone.
That was perfect.
That was great.
And then the very last scene before the post-credits, we get, this is like the actual Spider-Man origin. He moves into his shitty apartment.
Yeah.
Cash at the beginning of the month for rent.
Were you expecting to have the rent attendant from the original trilogy?
Not completely, but that would have been hilarious.
I was like, if that rent guy walks past the door and it's him, I'm gonna laugh. It wasn't. That was the one of the last few times where I was like, but they didn't. And yeah. And you get to see the great point where he's got the Sidious Lego figure where he's not forgetting, and he kept the cup from MJ. And I love how everyone hated, or I shouldn't say everyone, a lot of people hated that that 90% of the time in these movies, he wore suits that were made from Stark Tech.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people hated that all these movies had to have MCU people, that this Spider-Man never got a chance to stand on his own. I was like, he's a kid that needs mentorship because he didn't have it. And now he makes his own suit for the first time out of a freaking sewing machine. It is the bright blue and red. It's got the same patterns pretty much as Toby and that. It's just his own version of it. And now he's a Spider-Man that the MCU literally doesn't know exists.
Yep.
There couldn't be a more, every complaint you've ever made about him is gone now. He's Peter Parker.
So basically what this ending accomplishes is one of two things. A, this Peter Parker still exists in the MCU, but mind wipe, so like people don't know his identity.
Yep.
And then, if they really wanted to, they could just keep like doing Sony Spider-Man movies, but just like keep them separate.
Exactly. They have a perfect way, and I keep telling people this, that in case Sony gets stupid, to go, Spider-Man who? We got what we wanted out of Spider-Man, and now he's yours. Now, keep in mind, Kevin Feige's not dumb. There's going to be more. But this is very much an insurance policy type of thing in my mind, where it's like, everything y'all are doing is over there. We could possibly bring in Miles, or, in my opinion, you should have Ghost Spider, which is the official title of Gwen Stacy as Spider-Woman. Have her in there. I'm just saying, man, I'd love to see that suit in live action. But
Same.
And you know who you could have player? Emma Stone.
Yep.
Which brings us to the end credit scene, which, by the way, man, the little bit we got to see of that suit,
perfect.
Looks great. And also, man, I said that they copied the Spider-Man move off of there. Sony, you were looking, because that precinct marker thing looks exactly like the radio precinct thing that Peter has in the beginning of the Sony of the Marvel Spider-Man game on the PlayStation. It looks identical, which is fine. If that was even a shout out, that's okay. But we get to see the first credit scene, which sets up again two things. Do you watch Ted Lasso?
I don't.
You should. I got to watch it for the first time. But the guy who's the bartender in the first end credit scene is a guy who plays a Mexican soccer player, Danny Rojas, in Ted Lasso, and he's great. And I didn't know that until my buddy was sitting next to me, told me about it. But we get to see Tom Hardy, which everyone was so excited. You and me called it that he was in the end credit scene. Everyone was like so excited. He's going to get to meet Peter Parker. Oh my gosh, they're going to get the exact. Nope, he's going back to where he came from. The balls to set up that meeting in that movie, and then in the next end credit scene go, gotcha, send him right back.
This is probably the best troll that Kevin Feige could have pulled.
This is twice now that they've trolled people with these Spider-Man end credit scenes. It might be my favorite end credit scene in a Marvel movie ever, is in Homecoming, when you have Cap sit down and go, you sat all this time for nothing. But it sets up the Spider-Man multiverse pretty much. Because, and then again, Tom Hardy, I can listen to Tom Hardy and Venom talk to each other all day. Hulk, and you thought Lethal Protector was a shit name. They don't want stones. They want to eat your brains and your Eddie. They're the perfect odd couple, but
they are.
You send Tom Hardy back to his movies so that he can finish his trilogy, but you left
a little bit of symbiote.
A little bit of symbiote again. And you know what this does? Everyone bitched nonstop for two things. One, that the Venom suit wouldn't have a spider on it. Dumb. They could just fix it and then have Venom put it in afterwards. But two, one complaint that I had, and I was still very irritated about it, even though I was okay. It's like, well, I should say three. The second one was he wouldn't have webs. He literally walked around shooting goo into telephone poles, so he could have just went, well, what if I just did it like that? In comics, one of the coolest things about Venom to me is that he was the one thing that the spider sense didn't work on. Because he was with Peter, so Peter didn't see him as a danger, which is when I forgot to go back when we're with Andrew. When she throws the bun at him, he doesn't react because he doesn't feel he's in danger. That's how the spider sense works. That's what he's just like, it doesn't work with bread. Like, there's times like everyone's like, Peter Parker would win everything. He's this and that and that. And I'm like, if he doesn't feel he's in danger, he can get punked because he's been knocked out by Aunt May hitting him in the head with a candlestick before. Not kidding, because she didn't want him to go do something stupid because he didn't feel he was in danger with Aunt May. That's the one thing that the spider sense doesn't have. But now you can have two Venoms. You can have Tom Hardy Venom, and then you can have Tom Holland get infected by the symbiote suit, or whoever, or Flash Thompson be Agent Venom. You can do whatever you want because you can now have two separate Venoms. Kevin Feige point blank said, we're bringing Venom into the MCU.
But not necessarily Tom Hardy.
He said he loves Tom Hardy and he loves Venom and he's excited to have Venom in the MCU. Kevin Feige is a very clever bastard.
So here's the other thing. I guess some people are kind of like nitpicking the whole concept of Tom Hardy even being in this universe, just because, or no, they were saying like how come he's here? He doesn't know Peter Parker Spider-Man.
That is true. I guess
there's two explanations. One, he clearly saw it on TV that like, oh, okay, I guess we have to meet Spider-Person.
The weird thing with that is, though, he saw it on TV after he was blipped into the MCU.
Oh, right. But here was my second point.
Okay.
Venom has like, you know, like infinite knowledge from across the cosmos. So yeah. he would have known.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say, because he brings that up point blank that he knows about that. And like part of me would have been like, if he shows up in that movie and like Venom realizes that a different version of himself died because of Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, I was like, that would have been something else. But yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to bring up if you didn't. He brings up, I have a branch knowledge of all of this and whatever. And he's like, that guy. I don't know why, but I know that guy. And yeah, there's a big setup to do a lot of cool shit. And then I thought they were just going to have another end credit scene. No, they had a full-on freaking trailer for Multiverse of Madness.
The last time they did something like that was at the end of Captain America, the First Avenger. It was just a teaser for the Avengers.
Yeah, it was like set designs and stuff like that. And it hit me when we got that. I was like, oh yeah, they should have had that at the beginning of this movie, but they didn't. But it works out so perfectly because it works like an end credit scene because that trailer plays so well off of Spider-Man, and it would have been kind of spoilery
to
have it beforehand.
I think that's why they did it.
Yeah, exactly. And like, you and me talked about how it'd be really cool if they started bringing what if stuff into the MCU, and then they literally bring the coolest what if into the MCU.
Now here's a question: what the hell is evil Doctor Strange doing here after he was supposed to be watching watching those two characters fight?
I don't know. And if that is for real, by the way, we all don't know this, by the way. Me and Mike are just making gestures and being based off of some things that Marvel executives, including Kevin Feige, have said. It could just be, there's been evil Doctor Stranges before, but we're just like, there's testing ground shit here. They're doing zombies. They now have that. They're doing teases. I don't know what they're doing. Shumagorath was in this trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I have been joking for years with people that Shumagorath was going to show up, and he did. And there's been rumors that the reshoots that they did was to purposely put more multiverse stuff into this movie, which I wouldn't be against. But like, you had the Buzzsaw in there, the freaking Baron Mordo with dreadlocks now, evil Doctor Strange, all this weird stuff, Wanda, which we knew about.
So one thing this trailer confirms, it could still be a misdirect. Wanda is definitely not the villain.
Oh, no. I didn't think, and I kind of hope that Wanda didn't. I think that Wanda is going to be very much the person that helps him with this. And I in my head never thought Wanda was going to be the villain. I thought that maybe Wanda was going to be the one that broke it and then had to help him fix it. And then something that was there when they broke it had to help be fixed. I never thought that it was going to be Strange that initially helps break it and then needs her help to fix it.
Although something I have wanted for a while, like even before the first Doctor Strange was even a thing, was to have just an adventure with Doctor Strange and Wanda.
Yeah, and we're
like in case we never actually got to see Agatha Harkness in the MCU, like Strange could have just been like her mentor.
Oh yeah,
in that capacity.
Oh, absolutely. And I bring up again that they can't be stopped. We're having a freaking Agatha Harkness show just because they liked her and they thought up a storyline. Because they get Avengers Endgame life gross every month. I'm going to mention it every time I can.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just, and now the big ongoing rumor is that Disney, that Doctor Strange movie is going to be lambasted with Fox cameos. Because why wouldn't they?
This would be the place to just go hog wild with all of the cameos.
Because what could they do at the end of the movie? We're done. Don't gotta worry about them anymore. That was a cool thing. On to the next one.
Also, Sam Raimi is directing this, so I'm curious if Bruce Campbell is going to have some sort of appearance.
I kind of want Bruce Campbell to be Mysterio in this movie.
Just because?
Just because. Because that was the big rumor that he was going to eventually show up in the Raimi films as Mysterio.
That would have been fun.
That, or like you could bring in like... They talked about that they were setting up the second movie. John Malkovich was going to be the Vulture in the fourth Spider-Man movie, and you were going to have whoever played Kirk Connors was going to be the Lizard. If they would have made it to a fifth movie, I can almost guarantee you it would have been Mysterio.
Mm-hmm.
But you're getting to see Sam Raimi do multiverse stuff. Sam Raimi, I think, is going to be one of the more of the directors that they let have a little bit more length on the leash. So Sam Raimi, and what his filmography is, looking at Doctor Strange going like that. I imagine him not as quite in depth as James Gunn, knowing the level of this stuff, but James Gunn just picking through the set list going, I can use any one of these. Okay. Oh, man. That's going to be a movie and a half.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for it. Oh, man.
So, final thoughts on what is basically the season finale of the MCU this year?
That's the best Spider-Man movie they've ever made. I like it more than Into the Spider-Verse.
I'm kind of leaning towards the same thing. There are still things about Into the Spider-Verse that I like. There are individual things I like a little bit better, but for a Peter Parker movie, No Way Home is perfect. Yeah. It gets the character down to a T.
And I might get a lot of hate for saying this, but it is miles above and beyond in the next area code the best trilogy or set of Spider-Man movies.
No, I agree with that.
You have
as much as I appreciate Spider-Man 3 more now than I may have in the past, it still kind of brings down the Raimi trilogy.
It does. And like just villain based outside of cameos from other MCU villains, other MCU characters. You have Michael Keaton as the Vulture. Michael Keaton made the Vulture awesome. You had Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, as one of the best villain performances ever committed to screen. And then you had everyone here, including Willem Dafoe, leading the charge as villains. You capped off the third trilogy with the main villain from the first movie of the original trilogy, putting in a better performance than he did in the original trilogy. And you made it a plot point and not just a useless cameo.
Mm-hmm. This movie didn't need to go as hard as it did, and yet they pulled out all the stops.
Yep. And I still go back and forth with stuff with thing, but I think Tom's my favorite Spider-Man too. All around, I think this is the best package they've ever come close to, because listen here closely, folks. When you plan stuff and take your time, it turns out better.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. It was good. It was really good. I want theaters to be back again. This is one of the things that just, it made me miss the just experience of going to a theater.
That communal experience in a movie theater is something that can't be replicated.
It can't. And this is what I'm going to end on. And it goes back to this Martin Scorsese horse shit about how these movies aren't cinema. Cinema is not a thing you define. It is a literal thing, and stop trying to put parameters on it. Everyone that says that is a dumbass that just wants to go, well, no one talks about my dramedies. If you don't like them, you don't like them. Don't try to say they're not the thing they literally are. If you don't like an MCU movie, just say you don't like it. Don't regurgitate stupid thoughts that don't make sense from people that were upset that people weren't watching their 3-hour-long Netflix movie when something else was in theaters. Shut up. Never, and I'm going to swear, fucking never be that person that goes online and goes all those, well, I just can't get over how people get excited for movies in theaters. It is not your fucking problem to worry about why you don't get excited about things as other people.
Well said.
Never. That person is enjoying their life to the fullest. And if that upsets you, that person is excited, you need to rethink how you think about happiness. Could it be a little bit less loud? Could it be whatever? But if you're actually upset that a person is happy and is the most joyed they've been at their life about something, shut your mouth. No one needs to hear your thoughts. Ever. Never once go online and complain that people were happy about seeing something that they had looked forward to in their life ever. Whether it be wrestling, whether it be movies, whether it be anything, shut the hell up. Your opinion is not valid. If you are going to criticize another person's happiness, shut the hell up. That's all I got to say. Saw a lot of that because this was the most full theaters have been in a while, and people were pissed that they got to see cool things and something they look forward to and be happy. That's my train of thought. But anyway, Mike, this is going to be 2 hours long. Where can they reach you?
You guys can find me on Twitter at CaptainK42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can find me in all the various Facebook groups just at my name. You can check out Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and Twitter at Ren Pop Culture. Look for us on Podchaser. Listen to all of our podcasts on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, etc. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. Need an escape? So do we.
Absolutely. And you can find me everywhere at Organoid Zero. I was planning on streaming tonight. Then I remember we had the review. And then I was planning on streaming tomorrow. And then I realized we're probably doing Hawkeye tomorrow. So Thursday, I swear to God, I'm going to be streaming Miles on Thursday. and then it will probably bleed into the weekend, but I will be streaming Miles. I promise. So, yeah, we will see you all next time. Till then,
Peace.
peace.